Welcome back to Redacted Frequencies. I'm Cipher.
And I'm Echo. And we're diving into some seriously murky waters today.
Yeah, we're talking about red rooms on the dark web. And before anyone gets too excited or, disturbed, we need to ask the big question right up front. Are these things even real?
Right, exactly.
Because, if you spent any time on the internet, you've probably heard whispers about these alleged live streams where horrible things supposedly happen to real people in real time.
Torture, murder.
All for the entertainment of paying viewers who can supposedly interact with what's happening. It's like the most twisted version of pay-per-view you could imagine.
God, yeah. And the name Red Room itself it's pretty obvious where that comes from, right? The idea that there's so much blood that the whole room looks red.
Exactly. It's this perfect storm of everything that makes people's skin crawl. You've got the anonymity of the dark web, cryptocurrency payments that are supposedly untraceable, and this whole mythology around what the darkest corners of the internet might contain.
Right.
But here's the thing that we really want to dig into today. And we've been researching this for weeks now. There's a massive gap between what people think exists and what we can actually prove exists.
Oh, absolutely. Like when I started pulling sources together for this episode, and we're talking about analysis from Vocal.Media, legal perspectives from Cartwright King Solicitors, technical breakdowns from DEV.to.
Yeah.
The pattern that emerged was really clear. Everyone's talking about red rooms, but nobody's actually seen one. I mean, nobody credible has documented a verified red room broadcast.
And that's really important to understand because the dark web absolutely has real, documented criminal activity. We're not saying it's some innocent place where people just, trade recipes or whatever.
Oh, God, no. Drug markets, stolen data, illegal weapons, that stuff is absolutely real and well documented.
Exactly. Law enforcement agencies have shut down major marketplaces, arrested operators, seized servers. There's concrete evidence of these operations. But when it comes to red rooms, the evidence just isn't there.
Right. And that brings us to what I think is the most fascinating part of this whole thing, the technical side. Like, let's just think about the logistics for a second.
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting. Go ahead.
So you're telling me that someone is going to set up what professional quality streaming equipment, maintain stable internet connections through Tor networks that are notoriously slow and unreliable, coordinate with multiple paying viewers in real time, handle cryptocurrency payments.
All while committing murder.
Right. All while committing the most serious crimes possible and somehow leaving zero digital footprint that law enforcement agencies around the world can find? It's frankly absurd when you think about it logically.
And I think that's actually a really important point to dig deeper into, because you mentioned earlier that you looked at legal analysis from, Cartwright King Solicitors?
Right, yeah. So Cartwright King Solicitors did this whole breakdown of the legal landscape around this stuff. And their conclusion was, it was pretty stark. They said that despite years of investigation and monitoring of dark web criminal activity, there's no concrete evidence that red rooms actually exist.
That's huge, though. I mean, we're talking about law enforcement agencies that have the resources to infiltrate major criminal networks, shut down massive drug operations.
Exactly. Like Operation Darknet, the Silk Road takedown, these agencies know how to trace digital breadcrumbs. And the academic research backs this up, too. There's this really interesting analysis on ResearchGate that puts red room rumors in context with actual documented dark web activity.
What did they find? I mean, what's the actual comparison like?
So they essentially mapped out all the verifiable criminal activity on the dark web. Drug marketplaces, stolen credit card data, illegal weapons, child exploitation material, all the horrible stuff that we know exists because there's evidence. Arrests, seizures, court documents. And then you have red rooms, which are supposedly this massive underground industry. But there's zero forensic evidence. 0 seized servers, 0 arrests specifically related to operating live torture streams. It's this massive gap in the data.
Right, and this is where, didn't you find that piece from Times of India that had a really interesting take on what red rooms actually represent?
Yes! Oh, this was really fascinating. They called red rooms modern digital folklore. Like, they're essentially the internet's version of urban legends, the same way people used to tell stories about, I don't know, vanishing hitchhikers or whatever.
That's actually a really apt comparison, because urban legends have always served a specific psychological function, right? They're these cautionary tales that reflect our anxieties about the unknown.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is how these stories tap into our specific fears about technology and the internet. Like, we already feel like we don't understand how the internet works, right? Most people have no idea what Tor is or how cryptocurrency actually functions.
Right. So you have this perfect storm of technological mystery and our worst imaginable crimes. It's like the dark web becomes this blank canvas where people can project their deepest fears about what humanity is capable of.
And the way these stories spread it's fascinating from a media analysis perspective. You'll see articles that are like, the dark web's most disturbing secret, or what police don't want you to know about red rooms, and it's all innuendo and suggestion.
So they're never actually saying, we have proof these exist.
No, it's always allegedly and rumored to exist, and some sources claim. But the headlines and the way they present it makes people think this stuff is established fact. And then it gets shared and reshared, and each time it gets a little more definitive sounding.
It's like a digital version of telephone, But there's something deeper happening here psychologically. Even when people are presented with the fact that there's no evidence for red rooms, a lot of them still want to believe they exist.
Right. And there's actually some really solid psychological research about why people cling to these kinds of beliefs. It's not just about being gullible or whatever. It's about what psychologists call the availability heuristic.
Availability heuristic. Remind me how that works.
So basically, we judge how likely something is to be true based on how easily we can remember examples of it. And these red room stories they're incredibly vivid and memorable, right? Even if they're fictional. So our brains file them away as if they were real experiences.
Oh, that's actually a really insidious. So you're saying that even fictional depictions of red rooms, like in movies or TV shows or creepypasta stories, they actually make people more likely to believe the real thing exists?
Exactly. And then you add in confirmation bias, where people seek out information that confirms what they already believe. And you get these online communities where people are constantly sharing evidence that's actually just more stories, more rumors, more fictional depictions presented as fact.
So it becomes this self-reinforcing echo chamber where the absence of evidence almost becomes evidence itself. Like, of course there's no proof because it's so secret and so well hidden.
Right. And honestly, I think that says something really important about how we process information in the digital age. We're so overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information that we don't always have time to verify what's real and what's not. So these compelling stories they stick.
But here's what I think we really need to talk about, and this is where it gets kind of uncomfortable. What are the actual real-world consequences of people believing in these myths? Because it's not just harmless urban legends anymore when you think about how this affects actual policy and resource allocation.
Oh God, yes. This is actually where I get really frustrated with how these stories are treated as entertainment. Because when law enforcement agencies are spending time and resources investigating reports about red rooms, that's time and resources that could be going toward addressing actual crimes with actual victims.
Right, and what does that look like specifically? Like, are we talking about significant misallocation here, or
So think about it this way. Cybercrime units have limited budgets, right? Limited personnel. And there are documented cases of agencies receiving tips about alleged Red Room operations, having to investigate them seriously because if they're real, that's multiple homicides we're talking about. But every hour spent chasing down these dead ends is an hour not spent on human trafficking cases, child exploitation investigations, financial fraud that's actually happening.
And it's not just law enforcement, right? This whole fixation on red rooms, it's actually distorting public understanding of what the real threats are online. Like people are worried about stumbling across some mythical torture live stream, but they're not taking basic precautions against actual, documented threats.
Exactly. Okay, what should people actually be worried about? Identity theft, which happens to millions of people every year, phishing attacks, ransomware, romance scams that drain people's life savings. These aren't exotic dark web phenomena. These are everyday threats that affect ordinary people using ordinary websites and apps.
And there's this other aspect that I think it's really troubling. When we fixate on these sensational, fictional threats, we're actually overshadowing real victims of actual crimes. There are people being trafficked, exploited, abused right now through documented criminal networks, but those stories don't capture the public imagination the same way that Red Room myths do.
Right, because real human trafficking cases, real child exploitation, these are complex, systemic problems that require sustained attention and resources to address. But they don't have that visceral, movie-like quality that makes people click and share. So we end up with this weird situation where fictional horrors get more public attention than actual ongoing atrocities.
You know, this pattern isn't unique to Red Rooms, though. We've seen this before with other digital moral panics. Remember the whole Momo challenge thing, or the Blue Whale challenge? These viral stories about online threats that turned out to be largely or entirely fictional, but they consumed massive amounts of public attention and parental anxiety.
Oh, God, yes. And the pattern is always the same, right? Some scary story emerges, usually targeting our most vulnerable populations, kids, elderly people, people who aren't tech savvy. Media outlets pick it up because fear-based content drives engagement. Parents panic, schools send out warnings, and by the time fact-checkers catch up, the damage is done. Everyone knows about this threat that barely existed in the first place.
And that brings up something I think we need to address directly, the responsibility of media and content creators in all this. Because when major news outlets run stories about Red Rooms without clearly stating that there's no evidence they exist, or when YouTubers make sensational videos titled, "I found a real Red Room," they're not just entertainment anymore. They're actively spreading misinformation.
And the thing is, a lot of these content creators, they probably don't think they're causing real harm, right? They're just making entertaining content, getting views, making money. But when your audience includes impressionable teenagers who might actually go searching for this stuff, or parents who are now terrified about what their kids might encounter online, that entertainment has real consequences.
So given everything we've talked about today, what can people actually do to better evaluate this kind of information? Because I think a lot of our listeners are probably wondering, okay, how do I tell the difference between real threats I should worry about and digital urban legends that are just wasting my time and mental energy?
So this is actually where media literacy becomes really practical. First thing, look for primary sources. If someone claims Red Rooms exist, ask for documentation. Not screenshots that could be faked, not anonymous testimonials, not a friend of a friend saw it. Look for arrests, seized evidence, court documents, statements from credible law enforcement agencies.
Right, and pay attention to the language being used. If an article is full of words like allegedly and rumored, and some sources claim, but the headline makes it sound definitive, that's a red flag. Also, consider the source's motivation. Is this someone trying to educate you, or trying to get clicks and ad revenue from your fear?
And honestly, Instead of worrying about exotic dark web threats that probably don't exist, focus on the boring but real stuff. Keep your software updated, use unique passwords with a password manager, be skeptical of unsolicited emails and links, enable two-factor authentication. These simple steps will protect you from like 95% of actual cyber threats you're likely to encounter.
You know, I think this whole red room phenomenon really illustrates how easy it is for fear to override critical thinking in the digital age. And that's not necessarily people's fault, right? We're dealing with technologies and systems that most of us don't fully understand, processing information at a scale and speed that our brains weren't evolved to handle.
Exactly. And I think that's why this kind of discussion is so important. Not just to debunk one specific myth, but to practice the kind of skeptical, evidence-based thinking that we need to navigate an increasingly complex information environment. Whether we're talking about red rooms or vaccine misinformation or political conspiracy theories, the same principles apply.
So to anyone listening who came into this episode wondering if red rooms are real, I hope we've given you some tools to think about that question more critically. And more importantly, I hope we've highlighted why it matters to ask for evidence, to consider the source, and to focus our attention and resources on threats that we can actually document and address.
Right. And you know what? I think that's actually a perfect place to start wrapping up this conversation because what we've really been talking about today isn't just red room specifically. It's this whole question of how we decide what's real in a world where information moves faster than our ability to verify it.
Exactly. So let me try to pull together some of the key things we've learned today. First, the absence of evidence matters. When law enforcement agencies with sophisticated resources and proven track records can't find any concrete proof of something that should theoretically be detectable, that tells us something important.
Right. And second, technical feasibility matters too. When something requires perfect coordination of multiple complex systems while committing perfect crimes and leaving zero digital footprint, we need to ask whether that passes basic logical scrutiny. And third, the psychology behind why we believe these stories. Even when evidence is lacking, that's something we can all recognize in ourselves and address.
And I think the broader lesson here is about developing what we might call informed skepticism. Not cynicism, where we reject everything, but a systematic approach to evaluating claims. Ask for primary sources. Consider the motivation of the person making the claim. Look at what credible experts and institutions are saying. And most importantly, follow the evidence, not the emotions.
So here's what I want to challenge our listeners to do. Take these same critical thinking tools and apply them to other viral claims you encounter online. Whether it's the latest health scare, political conspiracy, or tech panic, before you share, before you panic, before you make decisions based on that information, ask yourself, what's the evidence? Who's making this claim and why? What do credible experts say? And does this feel designed to make me afraid or angry rather than informed?
And I think the broader lesson here is about developing what we might call informed skepticism. Not cynicism, where we reject everything, but a systematic approach to evaluating claims. Ask for primary sources. Consider the motivation of the person making the claim. Look at what credible experts and institutions are saying. And most importantly, follow the evidence, not the emotions.
And if you want to dig deeper into this topic yourself, and honestly, we encourage you to do your own research. All the sources we referenced today are real and verifiable. The legal analysis from Cartwright King Solicitors, the academic research on ResearchGate, the technical breakdowns from DEV.to, the media analysis from Vocal.Media. These aren't hidden or paywalled. They're publicly available for anyone who wants to fact check our claims.
Absolutely. And we should we should explicitly thank the researchers, journalists, and legal experts whose work made this episode possible. When we cite sources like ResearchGate studies, Times of India analysis, law enforcement statements, these aren't just credentials we're dropping to sound smart. These are real people doing real investigative work, and their willingness to publish evidence-based analysis is what makes conversations like this possible.
You know, this conversation has me thinking about other digital myths and urban legends that probably deserve the same kind of scrutiny. The whole QAnon phenomenon, deep fake panic, AI consciousness claims. There's a whole landscape of modern folklore that's shaping how people understand technology and society. Maybe that's something we should explore in future episodes.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the pattern recognition skills we've developed here, looking for evidence, understanding psychological biases, following the paper trail, these apply to so many contemporary information challenges. There's definitely more work to be done in this space. But for now, I think we've covered what we came here to cover. To everyone who's been listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into one of the internet's most persistent myths. I hope you're walking away with better tools for evaluating information and maybe a little less fear about shadowy corners of the web that probably don't exist anyway.
Right. And remember, being skeptical doesn't mean being paranoid or cynical. It means being curious, asking good questions, and caring enough about truth to do the work of finding it. That's how we build a more informed society, one fact-checked conversation at a time.
And I'm Cipher.
And I'm Echo. Thanks for tuning in to Redacted Frequencies, and we'll see you next time in the static.
Oh, and before we completely disappear into the static here, if you're enjoying these deep dives into digital mythology, you know the drill. Hit subscribe if you're on a podcast platform, and if you're watching us on YouTube, smash that like button and let us know in the comments what other internet urban legends you'd like us to tackle next.
Yeah, and you can also find us on all the usual places, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your shows. But speaking of what's next, oh God, Cipher, should we tell them about our next episode? Because it's going to be another wild one.
Oh, we absolutely should. Next time, we're diving into another historical conspiracy theory that just won't die. Abraham Lincoln assassinated by the Rothschilds. And before anyone gets excited about secret banking cabals, we're going to be applying the exact same evidence-based analysis we use today.
Exactly. Primary sources, court records, contemporary newspaper accounts, the whole forensic approach. Because this is another one of those stories that sounds dramatic and gets shared all over social media. But when you actually start digging into the historical record, well, let's just say the evidence tells a very different story than the viral posts.
So until then, keep questioning, keep fact-checking, and remember that the most interesting mysteries are usually the ones we solve, not the ones we just endlessly speculate about.
Perfect. This has been Redacted Frequencies. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and we'll catch you in the next signal.